Hey guys, it's mangagurlsmiles back with another video, and today I'm going to be doing another anime review, but this time it's going to be more in depth, so I'm calling it a review slash analysis thingy. And the anime movie that we're going to be reviewing today is called Tsutorenji Mukoharan, also more well known as Sword of the Stranger. There are going to be spoilers. If you are afraid of hearing spoilers, just know that you should definitely go and watch this, give it a try. For the veterans of the samurai genre style, take my word with a grain of salt. Well anyway, let's dive in. Okay guys, so I've just recently started getting into like the Japanese historical type genre of anime, and just generally I'm really like a history kind of nerd. I like history a lot. So I started getting into anime that are set during like the Sengoku period, which is where samurai were and stuff like that. And so one of the reasons why I like this anime a whole bunch is because it does have a lot of history in it. So a lot of my review slash analysis will have to do with history, but I'll also give you reasons why you should watch it even from an animation and anime type point of view. So getting into the Japanese culture and things genre, I found this movie, Sword of the Stranger, and I immediately fell in love with it. Now this is not to say that all of you will fall in love with it the same way, so like I said earlier, take my word with a grain of salt. But I did really love the story. I think Masahiro Ando, who is the director, did a great job. And also the animation company, Bones, bravo to you. This movie was originally released in 2007, and it includes some semi-famous voice actors such as Tomoya, I'm gonna butcher these names, Tomoya Nanase and Yuri Chinen. I think I said it right. The story starts when Kotoru and his dog Tobimaru are running from this mysterious group of people, which we later figure out are the Chinese from the Ming Dynasty. And on the way of running from these people, he runs into a ronin named Nanashi, which literally translates no name. He also mentions at one point that his name is Red Hair because secretly he has red hair and is a foreigner. Along with the Chinese group that is chasing him is another foreigner named Liu Long, who searches for a worthy opponent, which we later find out in the series is Nanashi. Now, you might be wondering what a ronin is, and since this is an analysis as well as a review, I'm going to tell you. A ronin is a samurai essentially without a master. And if you know anything about samurai or about early Japanese periods, specifically Sengoku period, then you might know that being a ronin is not a good thing. Samurai had their masters die or their masters got separated from them, they were supposed to quit seppuku, which is a samurai's suicide, essentially. And side note, they make fun of this in 50% Off if you've ever watched that, if you're a Free fan, and they say swim paku. It's great, made me laugh so hard because I know the history. Essentially, it's a very derogatory term, so it's not necessarily a good thing to be a ronin, except nowadays I think in modern Japan they might call people who are in between stages in life ronin, so it would have a less derogatory, kind of connotation. I think they call people like who are in between high school and I'm not a culture expert here and I have never been to Japan, but I did some research and I think they call people who are between high school and college, or between college and their job a ronin, which I find really interesting that the term still kind of keeps about even after the samurai are gone. Even though Nanashi is not the greatest person, Kotoru still develops a friendship and a fondness of him, especially after Nanashi helps him with his dog. So now we're going to get into the real spoilers, and some like Japanese history stuff. As I said earlier, there is a Chinese group from the Ming Dynasty chasing after Kotoru, And the reason why they're doing this is because they believe that Kotoru's blood can cure death, because he was born on a certain day and all this kind of weird religion stuff. And essentially that means that they think he can give immortality. And since the beginning of China, this has actually been like a thing, to where Chinese emperors really want eternal life. And I think it's mostly because of like their religious beliefs. I think it's also an inherent thing for humans to not want to die, because we all fear death, really. And so did the Chinese Emperor Qin Shi Huang. I don't know if that's actually how you say it, but I said it. So he's actually most notable for being the first to unite China. He reigned from 247 to 220 BC, and he was the most known also for searching for immortality. He even took mercury, which is a very not good substance for you. Do not take mercury, kids. And he took it so that he thought it would slowly help him be immune to death. But eventually, because he took so much mercury and he possibly overdosed, he died. So he essentially died in his search for immortality, which I think is pretty ironic. Along with this story of Qin Shi Huang, which is true, there are also fables and other religious stories of Chinese going to places like Japan searching for immortality. So that's where we get movies like The Sword of the Stranger, or also concepts and shows like Full Metal Alchemist, which you might have noticed with the search for immortality of like the I don't remember what they're called, but you know, like the more Eastern, they had like an Eastern version of alchemy and all that kind of crap. I also figured out that, which is really cool, this is connecting to Full Metal Alchemist, sorry, but the Chinese actually were like one of the first to really get into science and start calling it something, and they called it alchemy, which is where the whole idea of alchemy comes from in Full Metal Alchemist, which is really cool. But it's also where, because of alchemy, they started wanting to search for immortality, which ties into Sword of a Stranger. See, I told you I would bring it back around. And then also, this conflict between the Chinese and Japanese that is featured in the movie is actually very historical as well. When the Chinese and Japanese first started meeting with actually like interacting with each other and stuff, they were mostly allies, but as history has gone on, they've become more and more rivals than anything. And you think, since they're both such like powerful people that are really close to each other, they would try to like bounce off one another and like bounce off ideas and kind of cooperate together to further their own culture. But really, from what I have done research of course I'm not a historian, they actually really didn't do this as much. They actually tried to kind of lesser one another to grow their power. And I think they mostly became rivals around World War II. And I think that's obviously more modern than the Sengoku period. My theory is that Masahiro Ando was actually putting in some of his own current sentiments, or maybe at least sentiments from World War II, into an older time, which to historians and stuff would be cringeworthy, but to an artist it's kind of interesting and cool, I think. So again, I am not a historian, so I by no means actually know any of the things like 100% factually. I only spent like probably a week's worth of like research, maybe even less than that, maybe like, because I mean by week I mean like 10 minutes a day kind of thing, so like, 50 minutes or an hour or so of research. So it's not like I know everything. Heck, my school does not even teach anything about the Asian cultures or about Asian history, so I really know the bare minimum. So do not expect take everything I say for truth. Like I said earlier, take it with a grain of salt. But obviously these anime seems to at least somewhat match up historically. Whether I'm right in everything I say or not, I'm at least right, I think, in the basic concepts from what I've done research-wise. So I just think that's very fascinating, but to you it might not be as fascinating. So I'm now going to start talking about the animation and the character quality and all that kind of stuff. So, animation-wise, I personally think it was phenomenal. I don't know. It was just so great. The action scenes, if you're a shonen person, oh, the action scenes were so fluid and so engaging that you were just like, oh, the whole entire time. And I just loved it. Accompanied with the really awesome soundtrack, which is verging on into another category. That the soundtrack was not overly like amazing in most parts, but when you got to the action scenes, it like took on its own form. I'm sorry, I keep on playing with my hat. It keeps on falling off my head. But I was just blown away by the animation for sure. I mean, it's really fluid. It has some great kick-ass battle scenes, and I just really liked it. I also liked the art style. I think it was obviously more shonen and a little more on the simplistic side, but it was still really, really interesting. And it was just pretty enjoyable in that category as well. I also liked the characters. Each of them had their own, like, well, at least the main ones had their own backstory, and you got to know a little bit about them. I also liked how Masahiro, both the Chinese and the Japanese, to not either of them be completely right, which, since it's a Japanese creator, obviously they have some kind of bias, but really, there didn't seem to be much bias at all. Each had really kind of bad parts about them. Like, the Japanese and the Chinese both were super selfish and really just looking for their own personal gain. And for a Japanese person to represent it that way, I think was really, really interesting. Although, I think the main characters, like Kotoru and Nanashi, really did need a little bit more character development. I do think it lacks there. But it honestly survives without all the background information, so it's really not too bad. The plot is not complex. So if you're looking for a super complex plot, this is not that. It's a pretty simple plot. It makes sense. I never got confused or anything like that. Like, it's not one that really overly works your brain or anything. But its simplicity, I think, is what I enjoy about it. Like, I don't have to sit there and, like, think the whole entire time, what in the world is going on? Because sometimes I find that I have to do that with anime. And I like it sometimes, but other times, you know, in things like this, I think this simplicity is what makes it good. Obviously, this is just my opinion, and it doesn't mean it's going to be yours, but I definitely think it's worth a try, so definitely go and try to watch it. Well, that's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. As always, keep on smiling.